Good evening from Tel Aviv. Tonight from Tel Aviv, all eyes are pointed towards Washington. Not that anyone's expecting any miracles from Washington, but tonight, talks resume for the first time in 3 years between Israel and the Palestinians. The talks will begin under the tutelage of the United States. The United States Secretary of State Kerry announced tonight that Martin Indyk will be the American Special Representative to the talks. Indyk, a long-time observer of Middle Eastern affairs, has been ambassador to Israel and also headed the Near East Institute, which is AIPAC's spin-off in Washington that dealt with issues of policy. Indyk is considered a strong friend of Israel, however, a strong critic of the policies of Prime Minister Netanyahu, at least the old Prime Minister Netanyahu. For the big question in Israel tonight is, has Netanyahu changed? Are we dealing with a new Netanyahu? There's a growing sense amongst observers that, as they say in Hebrew, asimon nafal, which means the coin dropped, which literally means the fact that he suddenly understands what he didn't understand before. In this case, that we must have a two-state solution, that the current situation cannot continue. There's a great disagreement among Israeli observers whether this is really the case or it's merely Netanyahu trying to buy time. But amongst the right, there is real fear tonight that this is the case. There's been a lot of talk in the last 24 hours of the need to break away from the government while there still is time. They shouldn't go along and wait until it's too late and be a party of what they consider to be the sins that Netanyahu is going to bring upon the Jewish people, like giving up land. Naftali Bennett has made it clear that if Bayit HaYehudi was to leave the coalition, within 2 minutes, the Labour Party would join the coalition and he'd be replaced by Yachamovich. And then the government would just be further to the left, and the views of the right would be ignored completely. Is he correct? Quite possibly. We'll have to see with time. Will any real progress be made in Washington? Again, we do not know. What I can say with relative certitude is the events in Egypt in the last few weeks have changed the calculation tremendously. From a situation where Hamas was on the rise, where it had strong support from the Muslim Brotherhood, we now have a situation where Hamas is on the run, the Muslim Brotherhood are no longer in power, and most Egyptians are now hating the Hamas for supporting the Muslim Brotherhood. Hamas, who had cut its ties with Iran because of Iranian support of the Assad regime, is now finding itself without any main mentors. There's been an attempt in the last few days to reconcile between Hamas and Iran, but it's very hard to go back after you've done what you've done. So the situation is Hamas is weak. Hamas has been weakened further by the agreement by Israel yesterday to release prisoners that were released as part of an agreement between Israel and the Palestinians, as opposed to as a result of a prisoner abduction. So at the moment Hamas is weak. There is a chance, it's a slim chance, but a chance for real peace negotiations to make real progress. If Netanyahu has changed, maybe Abbas as well has made the decision that he has to make those changes. Talking about Egypt, the violence in Egypt continues. The violence is being primarily driven by the Muslim Brotherhood. They refuse to accept the fact that they are no longer in power, and they're trying to create as much violence as possible, trying to provoke the police, trying to provoke the military. Because if they can provoke them, they can create bloodshed. And if they can create bloodshed, they can undermine the regime, even if it's their own blood. So it seems in their interest to be as violent as possible, to have as many of their own members killed as possible, and therefore the regime in Egypt should look as bad as possible. And so the United States and the UN will criticize the new regime for being too bloody, but the bloodiness is being caused by the Muslim Brotherhood. Late news tonight here at home, Frankel, who was Prime Minister Netanyahu's designee to become the new head of the Bank of Israel, Governor General, announced tonight that he no longer wanted the job. After 2 weeks of investigation into an affair where he allegedly stole some goods from a duty-free shop in Hong Kong, tonight he decided he no longer wanted to pursue the job. Sense is here in Israel that there were other allegations yet to come down the pipeline. So now it'll be up to Prime Minister Netanyahu to find a new Governor General for the Bank of Israel. This is Mark Schulman from Tel Aviv. Good night.